When the World Cup landed in America, the USMNT had one job: prove they belonged in it. Not in 2026 marketing posters, not in hype videos, not in "this young team has potential" conversations. On the field, against real opposition, under real pressure. And against Paraguay, they didn't just win, they made a statement. This was supposed to be a tricky opener. Paraguay are the kind of team that can make your night miserable. They're physical, compact, disciplined, and if you let them settle in, they can drag a game into chaos, which is exactly the kind of game the US did not want in front of a home crowd. Because opening games of the World Cup are weird. The energy is huge, the pressure is bigger, and if you start nervously, the entire tournament can start to feel heavy. So the US needed more than 3 points. They needed control. And for a little while, this didn't look like a comfortable night at all. Because for the first 20 minutes, Paraguay kept asking the same question: can you actually handle pressure in your own backyard? And early on, the answer wasn't exactly convincing. The US had the ball, but they didn't have rhythm. They had territory, but not enough control inside the game. Paraguay's plan was simple: let the US have the safe passes, then jump the moment they tried to play through the middle, make them restart, make them think twice, and if the crowd got nervous, even better. And for a stretch, it worked. The US looked fast, they looked dangerous, but they still didn't look settled. And then the game gave the US exactly what they needed. One clean transition, one moment where Paraguay's shape finally broke, and suddenly all that control turned into danger. The first goal didn't just put the US ahead, it changed the emotional temperature of the whole stadium. Now Paraguay couldn't just sit there and wait, they had to chase. And the second they had to chase, the match became a completely different sport. Because once there was space, the US suddenly looked like the version of themselves they actually wanted to be. Fast, direct, and way more dangerous. The second goal felt less like a surprise and more like the game finally becoming honest. And once the second goal landed, Paraguay stopped looking patient. And that's a dangerous state to be in against a team built for open grass. Because now every US attack had space to breathe, and every Paraguay mistake suddenly felt fatal. This is where the scoreline started telling the truth. Not because Paraguay were terrible, but because the game stopped being played on their terms. The moment they had to leave their shape, the US started running through the game instead of around it. That's when the night turned from tense to comfortable. And once it got comfortable, the rest of the scoreline felt inevitable. Not lucky, just earned. So yes, 4-1 looks emphatic, but the real story isn't the score. It's that the US survived the uncomfortable part without letting the game emotionally drift away from them. They didn't panic, they didn't force it, and once the first crack appeared, they punished it. And that matters because World Cup games don't stay clean for long. Sometimes you don't need to dominate from minute one. Sometimes you just need to survive the first storm, then make the game yours. That's what the US did here. And if they can do that again, this won't just be a nice opening win. It might be the first real sign that this team is ready for something bigger. If you want the next World Cup story, subscribe to Rovio 11 because we're just getting started.